Hello, friends. Welcome to the Fluent Zone, the place where I share beautiful English listening stories and podcasts to help you learn English naturally and enjoyably. Today, I bring you a heartfelt story about a mother's love, strength, and the challenges she faces in life. Let's listen together and improve our English with this touching tale.
I sat on the cold kitchen floor. My hands were wet from washing the dishes. My back hurt. I had no time to sit, but I sat anyway. My little boy was in the next room. He was playing with his toy car. He made a sound like vroom vroom and laughed. His laugh was soft, but it filled the room. I smiled, but my eyes were tired. I had work in the morning, but I still had clothes to wash, food to pack, and bills to check. I am Carla. I am 31 years old. I live with my son, Ben. He is 6 now. He is the reason I get up every day. I am his mother and his father, too. The man who gave him his name is gone. But my son does not know that. He thinks his dad is busy. I told him that I do not want him to feel sad. I will carry the sadness. I do it every day. I met Ben's father, Aaron, many years ago. I was young. He was older than me. He looked calm and smart. He had soft eyes and a deep voice. We met at a small cafe near the train station. I was there to meet a friend, but she came late. Aaron sat at the next table. He looked at me and said, "Waitin' for someone?" I said, "Yes, but she is late." He smiled and said, "Maybe I came early." That was the start. We talked, then we met again. We started to see each other often. I liked him. He was nice. He asked about my day. He brought food when I had no time to cook. He told jokes. He made me feel safe. I thought he was the one. I loved him. After 1 year, we moved in together. It was a small flat, but it felt warm. I worked at a school as a cleaner. I cleaned the floors and windows. I cleaned the bathrooms too. It was not easy, but it paid the rent. Aaron had a job too. He worked at a car repair shop. He worked all day. I cooked, cleaned, and waited for him to come home. Then one day I found out I was going to have a baby. I was scared. My hands shook when I saw the test. I waited 2 days before I told him. I was ready for anything, but he did not get angry. He said, "It's okay. We'll manage." I felt better. I believed him. When Ben was born, everything changed. I loved my baby more than anything. But Aaron started to change. He came home late. He was quiet. He looked tired. He did not help with the baby. When I asked for help, he said, "I need rest." I said nothing. I did not want to fight. I did all the work. I fed Ben, washed his clothes, stayed up at night. I had no sleep, but I smiled for my baby. I wanted Aaron to see how hard I worked. I thought he would say thank you. He never did. One day he said he was going to visit his cousin. He packed a small bag. He said, "I'll be back in a few days." He left. I waited. 1 week passed, then 2. I called him. He said, "I need time." I asked, "Are you coming back?" He said, "I don't know." My heart broke, but I said, "Okay." He did not come back. I started working more. I worked early in the morning and late at night. I did not buy new things. I only bought what we needed. Food, rent, soap, school shoes for Ben. Nothing for me. I cut my own hair. I did not go out. I did not meet friends. My life was only work and Ben. Sometimes Aaron called. He asked about Ben. He said, "Does he ask about me?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Tell him I love him." He never asked if I was okay. He never sent money. Still, I told Ben, "Your dad loves you." I did not want my son to feel pain. 3 years later, Aaron said he wanted to visit. Ben was so happy. He made a small card with the words, "I miss you, Daddy." I made tea and cleaned the house. At 4 p.m., Aaron came. He was not alone. A woman was with him. She sat in the car. She wore red lipstick and had long hair. She smiled and waved. Aaron said, "This is Kate." "She's a friend." I smiled too, but my hands felt cold. Ben ran outside and gave him the card. He looked at the woman and said, "Hi, are you my aunt?" She laughed and said, "No, I'm a friend." Ben smiled. They went for a short drive. That night, Ben said, "She is nice." "Will she come again?" I said, "Maybe." I kissed his head and turned off the light, but my heart felt heavy. After that, Aaron came more sometimes with Kate. She brought toys and snacks. Ben liked her. She said nice things. She took pictures with him. I smiled, but I watched in silence. I had no words. One evening, I asked Aaron, "Is she your girlfriend?" He looked down and said, "Yes." I felt like I could not breathe, but I stood still. He said, "I want Ben to spend weekends with us. We live in a house now. Big rooms, a garden. He'll like it." I said he is still small. Let's wait. He said, "Think about it." The next weekend, Ben came home with a drawing. It had a red house, 2 big windows, and a tree. He said, "This is Daddy's new house. I have a bed there. Kate says I can paint the wall blue." I smiled. I said, "That's good." But I wanted to cry. Aaron called again. He said, "Can he stay next weekend too?" I said, "Yes." He started saying, "We now." "We will take him to the park." We bought him a bike. We made him laugh. He gave her my place. She got the sweet hugs, the weekend laughs, the first bike ride, the hand drawings. She got to all the things I worked for, all the love I kept safe. And I stayed quiet. I kept doing the same things. I packed his lunch. I washed his socks. I brushed his hair. But inside, I was not okay. Before I share the rest of my story, I want to ask you something. Where are you listening from? Sometimes I wonder if someone out there truly hears me, someone who understands what I'm feeling. It gives me strength to know I'm not alone. So please tell me in the comments. I could not sleep that night. I looked at the wall. I could hear the clock. Tick, tick, tick. My eyes were open, but my heart was tired. I felt empty. My little boy was sleeping beside me. His face was calm. He looked happy. I kissed his forehead. I whispered, "I love you." The next morning, Ben said, "Can I call Daddy today?" I said, "Yes, but after school." He smiled and ate his breakfast. I made toast and eggs. He said, "I want to show Kate my new shoes." I said, "Okay." But my hands were shaking. I washed the dishes slowly so he could not see my face. At work, I cleaned rooms and took out the trash. I was quiet. One woman asked, "Carla, are you okay?" I smiled and said, "Yes, just tired." But I was not okay. I kept thinking about the red house, the garden, and the painted wall. I kept thinking about Kate and her soft smile. After school, Ben ran to the phone. He called Aaron. I stood near the door and listened. Ben said, "Hi, Daddy. Can I come to your house this weekend?" Then he said, "I want to play with the new bike." Then, "Can I sleep in my blue room again?" I sat down on the chair and looked outside. The sky was gray. The wind was cold. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. On Friday, Aaron came to pick up Ben. He had a new car. Kate was sitting inside. She waved again. I said, "Hi." Ben ran out with his bag and said, "Bye, Mommy." I waved and said, "Be good." He said, "I will." Then he got in the car and they drove away. The house was too quiet. I looked around. His small shoes were near the door. His toy train was on the floor. I picked it up and sat on the sofa. My hand touched the empty pillow beside me. My heart felt heavy again. On Sunday evening, Aaron brought Ben home. Ben ran to me and hugged me. He said, "Mommy, we went to the zoo." Kate bought me ice cream. He was happy. He had stories. I smiled and listened. I said, "That sounds fun." I wanted to ask more, but I also didn't want to hear more. The next week, Kate sent a message. She wrote, "Ben is a sweet boy. I love spending time with him." I stared at the message. I did not reply. What could I say? Aaron called later. He said, "Kate wants to take Ben shopping next weekend." "Is that okay?" I said, "Yes, but my voice was cold." He did not notice. He said, "Thanks." Then he talked about clothes and shoes. He did not ask if I had time for myself. He did not ask if I needed anything. It was always about them now, not me, not the mother, only them. One Saturday, I saw a picture online. It was Ben, Aaron, and Kate at the park. Ben was on Aaron's back. Kate was holding his hand. They were smiling like a happy family. I looked at the picture for a long time. No one had asked me. No one had told me. That night, I sat alone in the kitchen. I held Ben's baby photo. He was so small in that photo. His tiny hands, his soft hair, his sleepy face. I remembered his first word. I remembered his first steps. Kate did not see that. She came later, but now she had the joy, the walks, the fun. I had the hard days, the fevers, the crying nights, the small hands pulling my shirt, the long bus rides with a sick baby in my arms, the cold days with no help, the heavy bags, the wet shoes, the broken nights. I had done it all. But now she got the happy part. The next day, Ben asked, "Can Kate come to my school play?" I paused. I said, "Why?" He said, "Because she bought my new shirt." I said, "Okay." Then I went to my room and closed the door. I wanted to scream, but I could not. I had no voice left for that. At school, I sat in the back row. I saw Ben on the stage. He smiled and waved. I waved back. I looked to the side. Aaron and Kate were sitting in the front. They were holding hands. Kate took pictures. After the play, Ben ran to me and said, "Did you see me, Mommy?" I said, "Yes, you were great." Then he said, "Kate took a photo of me with Daddy. I will show you." I said, "Okay." We walked home slowly. He talked about the play. I listened. I smiled. I carried his bag. At night, I gave him warm milk and tucked him in. He said, "Good night, Mommy. I love you." I said, "I love you too." Then I turned off the light. In the dark, I cried. The next morning, Aaron called. He said, "Kate wants to talk to you. Is that okay?" I said, "Why?" He said, "She wants to help. She wants to be a part of Ben's life." I said, "She already is." He said, "She wants to do it right. She respects you." I did not know what to say. Later, Kate called. Her voice was soft. She said, "I know Ben is your son. I'm not his mom, but I care for him. I want to help." I said, "He has a mom." She said, "I know. I respect that." She waited. Then she said, "I'm not trying to take your place." I said, "But you already have." She went quiet. I said, "Do you know how many nights I stayed awake with him? Do you know how many times I held him when he was sick?" She said, "No, I don't, but I'm here now, and I want to help." I said nothing. Then I ended the call. That evening, Ben said, "Can I make a card for Kate?" I said, "Yes, if you want." He drew flowers. He wrote her name. I helped him spell the words. I smiled, but my heart felt far away. He gave her my place, and I gave her my son's card. I was not angry anymore. I was just tired. The days started to feel the same. I woke up, packed Ben's school bag, made his lunch, walked him to the bus stop, then went to work. I cleaned halls, wiped windows, and picked up trash. My body moved, but my mind was somewhere else. I thought about Ben. I thought about how fast he was growing. I thought about Kate. I thought about how I used to be the one who knew everything about him. Now, I didn't even know what his favorite toy was. One evening, Ben came home and said, "Kate taught me a song today. It was fun." I smiled and asked, "Can you sing it for me?" He sang a little, but he forgot the words. Then he laughed and said, "Kate knows all the words. She sings it better." I said, "That's okay. You sing just fine." But inside, I felt something fall. I made dinner. Ben was talking about the new movie he saw at Aaron's house. I did not know they went to the movies. I didn't ask. I just listened. Then he said, "I wish you and Kate could be friends. Then we can all go together." I put food on his plate and said, "Eat before it gets cold." That night, I lay in bed and thought about his words. Maybe he was right. Maybe I needed to stop feeling bad and start being strong. Not for Aaron, not for Kate, but for Ben. He was still my child. He still came home to me. I still made his food, folded his shirts, held him when he had a bad dream. I was still his mother. The next day at work, my friend Mia came to me during lunch. She said, "You don't talk much these days." I said, "I'm just tired." She looked at me and said, "Carla, you need rest. You do everything alone." I smiled and said, "That's what moms do." She touched my hand and said, "But you're still a person. You need care too." I didn't say anything, but her words stayed with me. On Saturday, Aaron came to pick up Ben. Kate was not with him. He said she had to visit her sister. I nodded. Then he said, "You look tired." I looked at him for a moment and said, "I am." He said, "You're doing a good job, Carla." "I mean it." I looked away and said, "Thanks." But I didn't feel better. When Ben was gone, I sat in the living room. The room was quiet again. I looked around. The toys were on the shelf. His shoes were near the door. I saw the small picture on the wall. It was me and Ben on his 3rd birthday. He had cake on his nose, and we were both laughing. That was the last photo I had with just us two. I missed those days. Later that night, I heard a knock. I opened the door. Kate was standing there with a small bag in her hand. She said, "Hi, I hope it's okay. I came." I looked at her surprised. I said, "Is something wrong?" She said, "No, I just wanted to talk." Just us. I let her in. She sat on the edge of a sofa. I sat across from her. She opened the bag and took out a small box. Inside was a necklace. It had a small silver heart, she said. Ben saw this in a shop and said, "That looks like my mommy's smile, so I bought it. I want to give it to you from him." I looked at the necklace. I did not know what to say. I touched it and felt warm and cold at the same time. I said, "Thank you." She said, "I know this is hard. I'm not trying to take your place, but I love him too. He's a good boy." I looked at her and said, "I know you care, but it still hurts." She nodded and said, "I understand." We sat in silence for a moment. Then I said, "I carried him for 9 months. I was alone when he first got sick. I held him when he cried at night. I worked double shifts to buy him his school shoes." She said, "You're a strong woman." I looked at her and said, "I didn't want to be strong. I just wanted to be a family," she said. "I can't change the past, but I want us to work together for Ben." I nodded. I did not smile, but I felt something softer inside. The next weekend, Ben had a school sports day. He ran in a race. I was there clapping. Aaron and Kate were there too. After the race, Ben came to me first. He hugged me and said, Did you see me run? I said, Yes, you were so fast. Then he ran to Aaron, then to Kate. He smiled with all of us. Later, Kate came to me and said, He is lucky. He has so many people who love him. I looked at her and said, He is my son. But yes, maybe he is lucky. That night, when Ben was asleep, I looked at the silver heart necklace. I did not wear it, but I placed it near his photo. I was not ready to forget the pain, but I was ready to stop fighting the wind. Aaron gave her my place. That is true. But I still had my own place. I was still his first word. I was still his safe hug. I was still the first person he ran to when he cried. Maybe I did not lose everything. Maybe I still had enough. If you liked my story, please like, comment, and share. More simple and emotional stories are coming soon.